Welcome to the Hero's Blueprint. Today, we're diving deep with a guest whose story is a testament to the power of resilience and reinvention. Cash Lawless, known as the millionaire hairstylist, has walked a path that few can imagine. From being a homeless dropout to styling Hollywood's elite and building a portfolio of thriving businesses. From working as a small-town salon receptionist to styling for Vogue and Hollywood's biggest stars like Justin Bieber and Kylie Jenner, Cash reached the heights of success only to face an unexpected challenge that forced him to reinvent himself yet again. Now, as an entrepreneur, he dedicates his life to helping others build their dreams and step into their potential. Cash's work now spans venture capital, financial literacy, education, and helping others turn their creativity into wealth. Cash, it's an honor to have you here, brother. How you doing?
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Of course, man. There's a lot to dive into with you and with that intro that I just said, but I really want to start from the beginning and kind of just get a sense of how your story started. I mean, before everything that I just said, where did you grow up and kind of how were things for you early on?
Oh, man, I was born in California, Northern California, in Fremont. And from there, I lived in that area for probably about 7 years. And then we moved to the Dominican Republic when my dad got a opportunity to work with his uncle out there in real estate. And that was just a huge shaping moment for me. Moving to a different country at that age was really, really pivotal. And we were there for several years. And my mother was a medical missionary at the time. And so we would go with her to Haiti and saw some pretty shaping and formative things at the time. And from there, moved to Oregon, lived in the wilderness pretty much for most of those formative years, from probably about 10 years old up until I moved away to college, and had spent a little bit of time in those years in Spain. Lived over there for a while working on a farm with a friend of mine, and then from there I knew that I thought that I knew that I wanted to go to college, and that college was the right route for me. And so I went to college. I wound up getting a full ride and wound up making terrible decisions and terrible friends, and basically wound up dropping out, joining a band, screwing my life up, and ending up homeless. And that was kind of the beginning of a family taking me in and giving me kind of a second chance, a new direction. And they said, "Hey, you're gonna read books, you're gonna get a job, you're gonna make something of yourself, you have potential." And the first job I got was working 1 day a week at a salon, local salon, and that was kind of the beginning of my 12-year career in hairdressing.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. There's a lot to unpack there, because I think that there's a lot of people, especially my age and younger than me, next generation, that they're getting out of high school, they're going into college, and they really think they kind of know what they want to do, and then once they get there, maybe it's not what they realize, or maybe their kind of path is kind of changed, and now they're kind of stuck in it. And I know a lot of people that graduate college that completely change everything that they're doing for their life now. But I know that there's some people that are probably in a situation similar kind of how you were in, where they just made some shitty mistakes in college, and maybe just kind of are at that point of where they feel like they kind of messed their life up. So what was kind of like the that point where you felt like you messed your life up? But I know you said you kind of moved in with somebody, but what was kind of like the idea of like, did you think you could turn it around? Was that even an idea, or did it just kind of happen naturally?
You know what? I don't even think I was smart enough to be paying that close of attention to be introspective. I was really just kind of suffering from like self-pity, anger, depression, and those things just kind of like take all of your analytical and logical self-views of, where you're like, you know what? I don't want to be here. It was just, I just remember it being incredibly embarrassing, and every day just having to do what I had to do to get by. I mean, I lived in an abandoned car in a parking lot for 3 months in the middle of winter in Oregon, lying my way into a job that I completely sucked at, and doing everything I could just to get some money. So it was a time and a place in my life where didn't really have the luxury of self-reflection, or at least I wasn't even thinking about it at the time from what I can remember. All I remember was, this sucks, the world sucks, life is hard, and I played that game instead of trying to get better. And it really wasn't until that family took me in that kind of gave me a new perspective on what was possible. And I felt kind of like I owed it to them too. And then I read the book Think and Grow Rich because they made me read every time, every moment that I wasn't, out trying to get a job or washing their dishes or doing something. The task was you're going to be reading. And Think and Grow Rich was one of the first books that I read, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's me. And that was a really amazing moment. And from then, I became a voracious reader.
Yeah, that's introducing something new. Like that family was something new that was introduced to you, and then the books that were introduced to that was new. I know personally for me, like whenever I found myself in a rut or depression or something like that, the hardest thing that you can possibly do is do something new.
Yeah.
Do something different. Pick up a book, go try and get a job that's completely different than what you're trying to do. But I think that's so important right there to kind of highlight, is because like for me, every time I find myself in a funk now, it's usually I have to go out and do something that I don't want to do, like joining a public speaking club that I did when I was in a really bad place mentally. I went and I did that, and I did not want to do that at all. But that expanded my worldview from that limited box that I was in, and opened up a whole bunch of doors for me, that I was like, wait, life isn't how I see it. It's just that I've been living this way for so long, and I just have closed off the doors from other people introducing me to new things. So I encourage anyone kind of listener that might find themselves in a dark place or kind of like stuck, is you got to try doing something new. And even if it sucks, just expand your mind beyond what you know now.
There's a pretty, it's like, I think it's just human nature, and I could be mistaken. I'm not an expert on the topic, but I would say the majority of people that I've bumped into are resistant to painful change. I'd say like most of us could probably admit that about ourselves. I mean, there's a reason that we live lives and often find ourselves not doing what we should do and then doing what we shouldn't do all the time. And it's a part of human nature. I think when it gets really sticky is when those things, you're doing those things you shouldn't be doing, and then you're not doing the things you should be doing. When you live in incongruency with yourself and you avoid what you need to do, which is almost always on the other side of painful change, that's when things start to spiral and get really bad. I think like living a life, not looking in the mirror and knowing that you can't trust yourself. You don't have you look in the mirror and you go like, I was supposed to go to the gym. I was supposed to meet my friend and I bailed. I was supposed to do those things and I didn't. And then you start getting into this cycle of like beating yourself up. And then you can't see yourself as a trustable person. And then you wear that everywhere you go, and everyone else starts to perceive it on you. And your life just goes to hell. And it's kind of exactly what happened to me in that season of life. It was just like, not doing what I was supposed to be doing things I shouldn't have been doing. And then I just became a person I didn't like, and then blamed everyone else because it was painful to look in the mirror. I think it's a part of human nature, and you're right. It's growth and good things are on the other side of typically painful stretching. But we always avoid it. I still do to this day. Every day I do something I shouldn't have done and don't do something I should have done every single day. So you do have to kind of find that grace with yourself that isn't you being like, giving yourself so much grace that you don't actually get your ass in gear. Because I do think there is a healthy amount of, hey, self-talk that's, hey, get your ass in gear.
Yeah. No, I honestly, thank you for saying that, because I think a lot of people, they'll beat themselves up if they're doing really good throughout the day, and let's say that they're on a diet and then they eat one cookie, and that one little thing right there is like what kind of could spiral them out into control.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are chasing for being perfect, or trying to be this perfect person, whether that's because they see social media, they know somebody that they think is living a perfect life, and then they're trying to chase that. But we're all imperfect people at the end of the day, but it's really just kind of making sure that you are aware that like you're probably meant for more than just that situation that you might be in if you feel like you can't do anything, or if your self-identity and your image is garbage.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, you look in the mirror, you don't feel like you can trust yourself to even get out of this situation, and you carry that with you everywhere. But going back to like Think and Grow Rich, or surrounded yourself with environments, once somebody else sees something in you that you don't see in yourself, that can change everything right there.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like I went to Toastmasters. I got people telling me I'm a good speaker. I'm like, what do you mean I'm a good speaker? I'm this horrible speaker. I wake up every day. I'm like, I can't speak. I'm having a panic attack talking in front of you guys. And now, but like right there, that was an introduction to something new about myself that if I didn't put myself in that environment, I would have never known about myself and been like, hey, wait, maybe actually I can speak. Maybe I actually am good at something that I didn't think I was. That's a really good point you make about everything. So I want to ask you about transitioning into the salon, because I think a lot of people, especially men, you know, a lot of people that grow up and they might have the sense of what they're supposed to do, like we were saying earlier with college, and they think that they're meant for this job. They think that they're meant for this, and like salon might be something that for some men out there that's like they can't see themselves doing that, and that might be kind of like something that maybe even if they want to do, they just don't think that they can do that. What kind of led you into going in the salon, and was there any kind of obstacles that you had to face initially kind of entering into working there?
Well, I didn't want to do it. To be honest, I completely judged everything about it. I was like, I'm not going to do this. This is something for moms that, you know, need an extra paycheck or something. I had so many false assumptions about what it was. At the end of the day, I really wasn't concerned about much other than like, I wasn't like, oh my gosh, I'm so motivated to become a hairstylist. I needed a job, and I took a job, and I was like, okay, well, this will be a launching pad for me to maybe go be a pilot or something, or, you know, and I was just at that period kind of considering a lot of different stuff. But then when I met with the owner, I had this kind of like light bulb moment when I got a tour of the salon, and they put me in this commercial pretending to be a hairstylist, and you know, and I was already thinking like, oh, I mean, I think I could own like 100 of these. And it comes from like, you know, like my first job was picking berries. My second job was bucking hay. And then I went to high school, and I made money selling creatine and supplements to other students because I could get it from a wholesale price. And then I made a little company in high school where I had 2 employees in high school filming videos, and I started filming weddings and funerals and events, you know, and school events. And this is back in like 03, 04. And there was like a bug in me that I wanted to create. I always was like, hey, I see an opportunity. I see an opportunity. I see an opportunity. I just didn't know what that was back then. I didn't know that was called an entrepreneur. And so when I first got there, the entrepreneur brain like immediately kicked on. But the I need cash flow brain took over and was like, okay, well, how would I ever own 20 of these? I need to like make money. And so step 1, make money. And that's where it was like, okay, I can work the front desk, and then I can see how the business works, you know, and like maybe if I can help grow this business, then I could, you know, figure out how to do it. So I dove into like learning about the business, and, you know, but it wasn't long before I was like way in over my head. I didn't know anything about business. And so the hairstylist said, hey, you'd be good at this, man. You should do it. Just you go to school, you know, you can get out and you can make $40,000 a year, you know, and then it's like you could do it anywhere in the world. It's very flexible. And I saw them and I thought, man, these people are having a lot of fun. As soon as I started working there, it was like 2 weeks in, I was like, dang, that does look attractive. Their clients come in and their clients love them. I'm like, I could use some love. That would be great at this point in my life. Somebody who actually wants something from me. So it kind of just became like, you know what? This is what's in front of me. It's an opportunity. I'm going to do it. And I remember I wrote down on a sticky note, you know, my goal. Said I'm going to commit to this for 5 years. No quitting, no leaving, no dropping out, nothing. You're going to do it for 5 years. And if at the end of the 5 years, you're not making $100,000 or insanely happy, only then can you quit. Right? So either you got to be really happy or you didn't hit your 6-figure goal. And I stuck with it. There's plenty of times I'm washing a plastic head in the sink, wondering what the heck I'm doing with my life, you know, during school. But, you know, it was a commitment, and I'm like really happy that I actually committed to it. And it bolstered a lot of like self-confidence in me too. Just to be like, I'm doing this no matter what. I don't care. It sucks. Yes. And I had a couldn't afford a car, so I had this little motorcycle at the time. There's an hour-long drive. So I work at the salon from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. And from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m., I'd be driving to school in Florida. And you know what happens in Florida at freaking 4 p.m. every day? It pours rain. And I would show up to school, and I'd have to get my blow dryer out and blow dry my boots out just so I, didn't get trench foot going to school. And I stuck to it. And it was good. It worked out. And I'm really glad I did.
Yeah. I like something that you said earlier is that when you first started working there, you went from just thinking about it from being a job is to kind of thinking about, well, how you started asking questions. How can I own some of these? What do I need to learn? And then you kind of like, as you were working, you just started figuring out like, okay, well, what else can I learn from here? Because I think a lot of people, and this ties in with you committing too, is a lot of people will go into somewhere and they don't have any sort of objective other than just show up for a paycheck. And I think a lot of people miss out on the fact that even if it's someplace that you don't necessarily see yourself being at for a long time, is that there's something there that you can ask, like, how do things run here? Like, maybe why do people come here? Why do people like coming here? Maybe if it's a food place, whatever the industry is, there's ways that you can figure out information from wherever you work that you can translate into other areas of your life. And having that commitment of like, well, if somebody else is, in a job, maybe they can just, like you said, you put a sticky note. Maybe they can make a sticky note saying, hey, I know I'm going to be here because I need the cash for at least 3 months. I'm going to commit to learning as much as I can about how I could run this place if I wanted to.
Yeah.
And then for 3 months, you have an objective going there beyond just getting a paycheck. And then opportunities start to open up for you. Do you think that because you committed, that's kind of like really what opened the doors for you? Because you knew like, okay, I'm here for more than just a paycheck now.
Yeah, and maybe I'd love your take on this too. You mentioned you were like 25 or something like that.
Yeah, 25.
Yeah, 25. Like I'm 38, so we grew up in similar times, but with the advent of social media, very different times. And I think at the time there was nothing to inundate me or overwhelm my mind with an infinite amount of options, where every day I open my phone and I see greener pastures every single day everywhere else. And everyone's trying to tell me how to make $1 million. And everyone's trying to tell me, dude, invest in this and buy this and Bitcoin that and, and start this business and drop ship here and wholesale this. And it's like, man, there has never been a time where you're more inundated with information that makes you feel like a giant piece of shit all the time. So I didn't have that. But I think maybe someone told me, or I intrinsically believed, or maybe it was from the books I was reading, that it takes time to achieve excellence in something. And 5 years dedicating myself day and night, it was wake to sleep. I was going to eat, sleep, and breathe hair with an obsession until I was not having to be basically subsidized by another family. I'm like, this isn't right that they got to like pay for my food and pay for my lodging and have me live in their house. And like, this is not cool. I want to be on my own and I want to be independent. And so, I think making a commitment to something for a long time now is probably harder because people have more options than they've ever had. And I didn't have any options. I didn't have a lot of options, at least that I was aware of. And that was actually good. And so, those dogs that like get a rash and you put a cone on their head, that's kind of a good thing. I think a lot of people could benefit from putting one of those on, proverbially speaking. I mean, if you want to wear one, that's fine too. But I think after employing a lot of people and building several businesses and just seeing kind of how different generations operate, I think we could all benefit from some commitment and focus. And I still can grow in those areas, but I really think I think there's a lot of people who lack clarity, and I was in that moment at that time. Clarity is a very, very hard thing to generate because you have one life, you get one chance at this, and then you have to commit a significant portion of it to see if there is gold at the other end of what you're hoping to achieve. And there is a risk there. But I would say that committing to something that for a longer period of time, as people hop jobs like every 1 to 3 years, and it's like that's not how you get good at anything or accomplish anything meaningful. You have to do stuff over and over and over and over and over again. And I think I learned that. It was just like, man, the way that I got good at braiding is the same way I got good at spreadsheets or financial analysis or things like, things like that. It's just you do thousands of them.
Yeah.
That's a hard thing to do these days when I have an option of like, what's more entertaining than doing another fundamental analysis of a balance sheet is just picking this up and watching some videos. Yeah. I need a break. So I don't know. I think back then commitment helped, but it's harder to stick to today for people. What do you think? Do you think is it option overwhelm for Americans that would prevent people from committing to things as long as they used to?
Yeah, 100%. I like your analogy of the dog with a cone. I find myself, it's still to this day, but more so when I was younger and over the past couple of years of, you can go on Instagram or you can go on social media and you see somebody, with just looking like they're in a terrible position, maybe homeless outside, maybe they can make a social media post, I'm homeless, and then they don't post for a year, and then a year later they post that they have a Lamborghini.
Yeah.
And then all somebody sees when they click on somebody's page is, okay, an overnight success. I see one picture of them right here of them being homeless, and now I see a picture of them with a Lamborghini. It's like, okay, now when somebody sees that, it's like, okay, well, now I should be able to do that. How can I do that as quickly as they did? How can I, make these instantaneous changes? And it definitely is becoming harder because people don't necessarily, it took me a long time to realize I needed to know my why. Like when I was doing a lot of hunting, looking for the next thing to get me like $1 million, looking for the next thing to get me closer to where I wanted to go. I was asking myself, why do I want all this money? Okay, why is it important for me to have money? Why do I want to take care of my family? And the more I kept asking my why, I got down to the actual reasons why I wanted to live my life. So now I'm coming from a different context of rather than everything is kind of like looking at me and I'm like, okay, which one should I choose? It's more like which one is going to get me closer to what I actually want? Because maybe this shiny object right here is going to get me closer to the money, or maybe it's going to get me closer to the people I want to talk to, but maybe it's going to pull me further away from my deeper why of building meaningful relationships. So I think it's really good having a clear foundation of, what you're trying to accomplish in your life. Like you were saying, you only have one life, and you better as heck make sure you're not living to live up to someone else's expectations of you, and make sure you understand why you're living. And that way you're still going to make mistakes, but at least that way now you can vet everything. Be like, that this isn't for me. This is going to take me away from what I want.
I like that lens.
To answer your question.
I like that lens. I think there's sort of an expectation today too with what the way things are supposed to be when we create a frame of the world through what we see in media, right? Yeah. So when we see these things, now you have a framework for how you perceive the way the world should be and how your life should be. And I think the way people look at careers or investing or opportunities is through the lens of kind of like what I might call a Princess Bride lens, where it's like you are just waiting for true love and it's supposed to feel like this. And until it feels like this, it won't be what I need it to be. I think that's a total fallacy. I think where results and actually come from is just taking huge action consistently towards something. It's like getting started and keeping going. And results are typically on the other side of that. Now you can generate, I think, really, really big results. Or you can sort of the road can fork where it's the same road, but it's just a slight veering. You went down one path and now you see another opportunity. It's a right time to take another opportunity, but it isn't like a life turnaround every year. I think there's something to be said about expecting what things are supposed to be like, because that's typically not how it goes. It's not how it works. It's typically whatever's on the other side of when you do get something. It's not how you thought it would be, nothing like how you thought it would be. Almost nothing. Not like your marriage or your business, or typically things go slower, they're harder, they're more expensive, and you're met with more opposition than you had anticipated, and things are just not as fun as you thought they would be. However, I think when you go through that without the expectation and you just say, I'm going to do this, then you just get to experience things without that supposition. and you go, okay, now what? Okay, now what's the next opportunity? Okay, from here, where do I want to go? From here, where do I want to go? Rather than kind of like waiting for the magic thing that's going to make you happy. It doesn't exist, not at least that I've found. So I think just taking a tally of, if I look back on like what maybe I would have done differently, I think I would have loved to have started taking a tally of what I was naturally gifted to do, what I was uniquely positioned to do, and then chosen a path and taken massive action that way. But if you don't have that, just take action, do something, do something. I think you're going to get way better results just doing something. And then the next day, figure out, okay, I've got a target, I've got A to B, how do I get to B? I think that's a simpler, there's a more enjoyable way to approach paths in life. There is no should.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And I think it's good that you point that out. And just before I ask you another question, to touch on that point of expectation, I think that a lot of people subconsciously too have expectations about their own self. So like, let's say like I grew up with in a single family household. Right there, I had this expectation or worldview of how families are supposed to be. And immediately, because I had that expectation that I wasn't a part of that I was somehow like an outcast or misfit, or like I just didn't fit in with the normal real world and stuff like that. And I think everybody goes through some trials and tribulations. And I think that a lot of people, they accidentally might see themselves as like, okay, because I didn't grow up this way, because I'm not doing this, because I'm not living in the way that I'm conditioned to think that the world is supposed to be, I'm somehow not worthy enough to be a part of it or be able to chase my dreams, or I can't ever achieve success or something like that. And you bring a really good point about releasing that expectation, because when you release and you allow, then you could really say, okay, maybe my story, my path is different than everyone else's, but maybe that's the reason why I can shine rather than the reason why I can't shine.
Yeah.
I always say you're most qualified to help the person you once were. So if anyone's listening right now and they're like, I don't know what I want to do with my life, look at who you were 5 years ago and ask, okay, well, who's in the position I was in 5 years ago? And that gives you a good start, because you got through it, so you can help those people get through it in a way quicker manner and probably way better way than you went through it,
Yeah. Yeah. I agree 100%.
Yeah, so I want to ask you about, like, because you've worked with some of the biggest names in the world, like some people will hear Justin Bieber, Kylie Jenner, like, oh my God, I can never, ever talk to somebody like that or ever be introduced to someone like that. One thing I found is that networking is a lot different than how I expected it to be when I first started off. Like the fact that I was, we were talking earlier about our mutual friend, Win, the founder of Paul Mitchell Beauty Schools, is like a couple years ago, I would have looked at somebody like Win or even somebody like you. I'm like, that's somebody I can never talk to. I'm not at that level. I'm not good enough. That's like, I'm always looking at myself as like below everyone, like a kind of like an employee mindset of like, I can never talk to the CEO. They're way too far out for me to do. And I know for my generation specifically, that's something that is like very big, is like when I tell people that they can literally DM people on Instagram that they might want to talk to and there's a chance that they'll respond, they're looking at me like, what do you mean? Like they look at me like I'm crazy. And I'm like, have you tried? And they're like, no. So for you, networking can be intimidating starting out. What advice do you have for someone who's trying to build genuine relationships with the people that they want to be around, but they just literally don't know how to start it? Maybe they don't even think that it's possible.
Yeah, I gotta be honest. Like, I sucked, and probably will always suck at networking. I don't really look at life like gotta network, and maybe I'm remiss for doing so. Maybe I should, and maybe whatever. But I don't really believe in the should anyway. So I've always felt like I sucked. I've always pedestalized other people. I've always felt like a giant piece of shit when I compare what I'm doing to other people. I don't know why, and then it's probably goes back to childhood or some psychologist might be able to explain it. But someone, and I don't even know who, maybe it was just a random soundbite I heard years and years and years ago, and it was like, when I went to high school, I was homeschooled. I was homeschooled up until 10th grade. So for like 11th grade and 12th grade in high school, junior and senior year, those are the only 2 years that I got in school. When I first got to public school, I had extreme social anxiety. I didn't know how to make friends. I didn't know how to navigate things. Like, oh my gosh, giant nerd that lived out in the middle of nowhere. And that was like, a really eye-opening experience for me because I felt so uncomfortable. And then I always felt this pressure to be like, okay, well, how do I make friends? Well, how do I connect with people? And it's like, you can't calculate that or strategize that. It's like, well, instead of someone said, it's like, don't put any pressure on yourself. Everyone you meet, just look at it like an opportunity to make a new friend. You have friends, and it's like, how to make friends because you probably have friends. And if you look at every person you meet like that, then you will naturally be networking if you're just out there looking to make new friends. That's it. But if you go out there with like extreme intention, there's places where that's acceptable and you do that and it's amazing. And like connecting on a podcast, right? I had Win on my podcast and was reaching out to me. That's like intentional reaching out to people, but I never saw it as like networking. Oh, I just saw it as like an opportunity to make a new friend and chat with somebody and kind of like learn about them. And then my wife later on taught me like, man, the best way to connect with people is just ask questions. And so that really, I feel like had an impact in my hair career and working my way through it because it seemed like people that sat in my chair were just like, oh man, I really like you. But I didn't say a damn thing. They talked the whole time. And it's just like, someone's like, oh, I did this. Dang, what was that like? And then you get someone talking and if you can just get someone talking and relaxed, then, hey, people open up. It's like what Joe Rogan does on his podcast. You talk long enough and you just ask them enough questions, people start getting real honest. And then once they start getting honest, it means they got comfortable. And once they've been honest with you, they feel like they like you and are connected with you. It's pretty simple how to make friends. Just be interested in people. Everyone wants people to be interested in them. Everyone feels this, social anxiety out there, like they don't fit in, or maybe they'll be rejected, or that's super normal. And like so many people feel that way. Just remember, everyone else is feeling that way too. So it's like, I just went out there as a total nerd and found myself in a room with celebrities and was just like, I did the same thing. Like, hey, what's up? Just ask questions. I think, maybe we just like overthink networking. Now, from the perspective of like, hey, if you want to work with celebrities, but you're in like Boone, North Carolina, where there's like 9 people, you obviously have to have some intention behind that to put yourself in the places where there's even a possibility of connecting with people, right? So you do have to go be intentional about being in a place where you do meet people and can make new friends and that are going in the direction of life you want to go. I think it's really important to be intentional in that sense, but everybody you meet, just be interested in them. And it's like, and then from there, it's just meet a lot of people. Go meet a lot of people. The more people you meet, if you're genuinely interested in every single one you meet, then it just happens to be a numbers game that you bump into really interesting people.
Yeah. I love that you said that because I think I agree as well that I think networking has a really bad rep right now because I would say bad rep because when people think of networking, for a lot of people, what comes to their head is getting into rooms, maybe suits or just shaking a lot of hands and, making things happen, whether it be deals and stuff like that. And that was my view of what networking was up until a couple of years ago when I started working with Craig and getting in rooms where I was like, oh my God, I shouldn't be in this room. Like, I don't deserve to be here. And then I remember I was just going around and I was talking to everyone. And the biggest thing I was really trying to ask him is, like, what is your why? And like, what have you been through? And really, I don't know if I was asking those direct questions, but that was just like what I was just trying to be like, what is your story? More than anything, I don't care about the accomplishments. I don't care about what you are now. I want to know who you are and stuff like that. And every single time that I went around doing that with the intention of let's just see if I can maybe make a new friend at the end of this, my God, I learned some incredible things that I would have never known about people because it's like I had this image of who somebody was because of what I thought they were. And then when I talked to them, and rather than being like, hey, I want something out of this relationship, I want a business deal or something, I ask them a question about who they are, what's their why. I learned something. I'm like, oh my God, I relate to you so much. And now I know your why and now I know your mission. So it's like now I know in the future, if there's anything I could ever do to support your mission, I know exactly who to reach out to. So I've kind of reframed networking in that sense is like, how can you be of service to everyone as much as possible? And by, like you said, going in rooms and talking to people with the intention of just no intention, just figure out who's gonna be a friend. It's like, there's a potential way that they can help you out in the future. There's a potential way you can help them out,
Yeah.
and vice versa.
That's it. You got to flip the script, I guess, kind of. I guess it's like, some of the things you said reminded me like, networking is really like if you walk into a room and your goal is like, look at me, it'll go terribly. But if you walk into a room with with some intention of like, where can I add value here? Like, where are the opportunities that I could help someone? And it's not meaning you need to help them right then and there, but if that's sort of your subconscious thing is like, what can I do for others? Where can I add value? Where can I be of service? I think you'll do a lot better if you're in a season in life where you're really trying to connect with a multitude of people and you're going and doing things. I remember, I went to an event once in New York, and it was the editor of Cosmo magazine that invited me, and I didn't want to go, and it wound up being a great night. I didn't want to go, and then my wife was like, "Oh, we should go." And while I was there, someone grabbed me, introduced me to one person, introduced me to another person, and introduced me to another person. It turns out a couple of those people in that night that I met completely changed the direction of my career. I mean, one of those people are who introduced me to Justin. So it was like the fact that you just go to things and go talk with people and go meet people without like expectations. It was just like, hey, we're going to go. I don't want to go, but we're going to go because meeting people is a good thing. And you walk in and you're like, hey, if I can be of value to someone rather than like walking in the room and being like, all right, who do I need to schmooze tonight? I mean, everybody hates that person.
Yeah.
You can smell thirst on people. You can. So I think that's just like your posture and your attitude and what your intentions are, I think are so much clearer than people think they are. And it's like, man, I can smell that guy in a room like a mile away and want nothing to do with it. And everyone feels that way, So networking is important. It is important, but I just don't think of it that way.
Yeah, no, 100%. I wanna touch on something that I was thinking of because when we're talking about making friends and just networking and just being authentic to yourself and just going in there no intention just except for building a friendship. One thing that because I know somebody's listening right now that's whether it be they're public speaker or they're trying to do something where they have to speak and they're like terrified. Every time I give a speech right now, I'm completely terrified. And every time I get up there to the podium, whether it's to give a speech about my story or like a tip, something that I know is going to help people, I always am super anxious, shaking, nervous. And one of the things I always notice when I'm up there that releases all that tension is the fact that I'm like, I'm so worried about how everyone is going to think about me. I'm so worried about, are they going to notice if I stutter? I'm so worried about this that I completely forgot that the spotlight is never supposed to be on me. It's supposed to be on them. I'm here for them. I'm not here for me.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of like mindset, whether it be you're walking into a room of like, remember that you're not there for you necessarily. You're there so that way that you can, share with other people, add value to other people in some way. And that mindset, no matter if it's going into a room to network or public speaking or work, like figure out how you can be of service and add value. My gosh, like that opportunity is like, I talk about luck a lot and how I don't believe luck is a thing, but it's more so preparation and positioning. And, that's where opportunity comes into play. If you put yourself in the right rooms and you prepare yourself so that way you're ready to share and you remember why you're there, it's like opportunities open up. So I just wanted to point that out.
What do you think it is? Why do you think it is for most people that public speaking is the number one fear?
Oh, I mean, for me, for sure, it's the fact that I always think that I'm immediately getting judged, or it's like, what if I just mess up? What if I can't get any of this stuff out? What if I just look horrible and now everyone thinks I'm like a failure? What if I just completely stumble? And I think that for public speaking, it's everyone has this idea, this expectation, we can go back to that, of how they expect it to go. And then the second that it maybe starts going some way different or maybe start feeling different, it's like, man, like I don't know if I can do this anymore. But I always have to remind myself, and it always calms my nerves so much, is when I'm looking out at people and I remember like legitimately the stuff that I'm here, although I'm anxious, it's because I'm anxious about how they're thinking about me. But, the most important thing is that after we're done here, is that these people know something that can help change their life. And, the second I flip the script on that and just say, you know what, I don't care if I fall over, I'm going to get back up and finish my speech. I don't care if I pass out. I don't care, whatever. I'm here to tell them something that I think is going to help benefit their life. And that's more important to me than me failing up there. And it's a battle, though. And it takes constant reminder, because when I'm sitting there for 30, 40 minutes before I get up there to talk, I'm sitting there and every reason why I should leave, walk out of the room, why I should tell everyone I'm sick.
Yeah.
But, when I always say when your mission is greater than just you, you can really kind of overcome anything. And so far for me, at least, it's like that's helped me out a ton.
Yeah.
What do you think, though?
Yeah, I think there's certain things that I think probably the vast majority of fears are pure imagination. I think most of what we fear is unlikely outcomes. Most of what we're terrified of is like the consequences wouldn't even be that bad. And I'm not talking about like getting eaten by a shark or something, right? Or drowning. I'm talking about, social fears and like all the fears that we have. A lot of them I think are unfounded. Couldn't say I know where those are from, but I can say that I've experienced a ton of them. I mean, just kind of like back to, I remember, one of the first celebrities I was working with, it was for the Met Gala, and I was in this beautiful apartment. It was a second story. Actually, they owned the whole thing, and it was down in like Tribeca. I mean, this place had to be like $50 million place. And I walk in and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so many amazing things everywhere. Like the art, the chairs, the wood chairs were just like, I remember seeing the dining table and be like, it's massive. And so I asked the maid or, housekeeper, hey, where can I set up? So I take my bag over to this corner over the table. I start putting my stuff out, and she comes out in a robe and sits down at the head of the table. And I noticed that next to the table, there's this amazing book on display. And it looked like 100-year-old, had pictures of Native Americans in it. And so, like, as I'm going to pick up my water bottle, I pick up the water bottle. I didn't even screw the top on. The bottom of the water bottle just fell out and it hit the floor, and like a geyser, water just sprayed everywhere, all over the room and all over this book from like the 1800s of like original photographs of Native Americans. And this was like one of the first jobs that it was like a serious job. And I was like, oh, my hands were sweaty. And I did not work with that person again. And so sometimes there are consequences, but I remember imagining things that could go wrong. That was not one of them at all. But I think when it comes to that type of circumstance and that feeling that I was getting beforehand, that probably would not have happened if I was paying less attention to myself and more attention to what I needed to be doing. And so I remember walking away from that and calling a friend and being like, oh my God, I ruined it. And I did, it didn't matter. It's like, the hair looks great, whatever, who cares? It was just from that moment, I could not build a relationship. I couldn't be interested in the person. I couldn't focus on what I was doing. And it just kind of like all of my fears fears manifested almost in a weird way. And so I talked to a friend after that, and I was like, man, I couldn't think straight. And so I just didn't even put the water cap on. And I created the mess up by thinking about myself more than what I should have been thinking about. And I think it was like, a kind of an epiphany moment where I wanted to like pivot my attention away from myself and be like, stop, don't do that again. Don't do that again. Focus on the other person. Focus on making the person feel comfortable, making the person feel confident, making them know that when they sit in your chair, that it's like, they're just like, you could do anything and I'm going to look and feel great. And that takes practice, obviously, but man, when you take the attention off yourself, real ideas and great work comes out of you. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's hard to do. And I fail at it all the time too. It's not like I'm saying, I figured it all out or anything, but When I do my best work, I'm typically not thinking about myself. I'm thinking about, what I need to be doing, who I'm going to be with, and my attention is outwardly focused. And that's been like super helpful for even public speaking. It's terrifying. And we have this like expectation of all the consequences and everything. But I think with like anything, reps build confidence. Like competence builds confidence. And so the more reps you do, those jitters and feelings, they do go away. I don't think when I public speak now, I don't think I'm really not jittery when I'm doing it, but I do get a little bit of those butterflies beforehand. Like if I'm backstage and they're like, okay, so they start the announcement and you're like, yeah, blood pressure probably goes up a little bit. But then when I'm out there, I'm kind of like, oh, this is just like making friends with people. It's pretty simple. Yeah. But man, if you want to get comfortable with something, reps. Do something thousands of times. It helps a lot.
Yeah. No, I second that too, because from me public speaking, in this specific instance, I've messed up so many times up there on stage, but nobody has noticed. Yeah. But I know. But I've gotten through it. And now every single time that I get up there and I'm like, you know what? I got through it last time. It's like now I actually have evidence for the reason why I can get through something, an obstacle, if I come across it. Whereas before, like my first time doing it, I didn't have any evidence that I could get through it. So like you're saying, the more reps you do, the more evidence you have as to why you're doing it, which makes it easier to push away the anxiety or push away those disencouraging thoughts, because it's like now you can fight them back with actual evidence.
Have you ever tried to tell a joke from stage?
No. Yeah, actually, yeah. And it didn't go good for me. So I didn't do it again, to be honest with you.
Same. I think okay, there's something about public speaking where it's like you get up there and you're going to give an inspirational speech or you're going to give a talk, and it's something and usually it involves a lot of stories that you've been able to tell that kind of correlate to the message you have to send. That is way easier than making that funny. And my wife does stand-up comedy and like improv and stuff. And I tried to like crack a joke in a talk one time, and like sometimes they hit and it's like, okay, hey, that worked. That's funny. Nowadays I run everything by her. But you'll say I said something and it's like, no one got it. And I was like, dang, that sucks. That is one of the suckiest feelings when you try to be funny and you're not. And I don't have a solution for that. But I would imagine professional comedians would say it's reps. You get out there, you put your material out there, and every comedian that goes out there and like tests their material, they know some of that stuff is just not going to hit. And so the expectation is just go have fun. We're going to try this new material. If it works, great. If it doesn't, great, But a new comedian's like, every joke's got to hit. It's so serious. Everyone needs to laugh. And if they don't, it's the end of the world. This kind of goes back to expectation, man. I think it's like you're going to have a happier life, if you just let things happen and you try stuff and it's like, hey, it didn't work, whatever. But man, trying to crack a joke on stage and it not working really sucks.
It does. And it reveals a lot, because it shows you that, it shows you that you have to be aware of timing. You have to be aware, because like when you start to really study comedians, it's like the whole thing that makes the stuff work is the fact that it's usually a story, and it's not, there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of building up a story, getting people drawn in and stuff like that. And like when your main intention is like, if you're putting, like for me, it was putting a joke in the middle of like a speech. I didn't have any of those things that builds up a joke to make it actually land on people.
Right.
And it just went over completely their heads, because it was like, I was telling a story, but it was nothing to do with the joke. So for them, it's like they're focused on the story, not the joke,
That's hilarious.
But yeah,
jarring the audience, derailing them. I really feel like in comedy, it's like called like a circle back or something like that. It's like people think things are really funny if they're a part of them, And then that goes kind of back to what you were saying. It's like, this speaking isn't about you, and people aren't going to enjoy it if they don't feel like they're a part of it. So if you want to be a great speaker, you got to figure out a way to make people a part of it.
100%. I want to be respectful of time, and there's two more things that I really wanted to dive into, because I know that especially now with the businesses you're involved in and stuff like that, there's a lot of people, and I know for a fact that I'm still trying to learn it, but especially the younger folk and next generation have a lot of problems with money. and, you know, the idea of money, what money is, or just literacy about money and how to manage it. And I'm just curious if you have any tips that you would have given your younger self, or for people that are maybe fresh out of high school and college or mid-20s, just that are feeling like they're just still not getting it. What money is, or they just can't seem to have enough to pay like their bills, or how to get more beyond just working like a job.
Yeah, I think all that comes back to clarity. For me, I can only speak, from my personal experience. When I'm unclear on where it is I'm going and who I am and what I'm doing and what I want, nothing works. It's just everything's going to be random. You're going to be dissatisfied with everything. You're going to wonder, even when the good stuff happens, is there something better? Having be like almost taking the time to develop clarity, for me, is step one in achieving any goal you want. Step one, what do you want? Right? You have to clearly identify what that is. And generating clarity is not a sit down for 15 minutes and then it's like, I know what I want. Generating clarity is something like going to the gym. It's something you do every day. It's something you do often. It's all the time. I do it in my sleep sometimes. I mean, it's my primary job. My primary day job these days is like, where are we going? What are we doing? How will all of our employees continue to be employed? And how will we all do financially better collectively in the future? How will we keep competing? What's changing in the world? And how are we going to, what's our role in that change? There's just a bunch of questions that you always have to be asking as the leader of businesses. And they typically come after you've determined what you want and who you are and what you're willing to do to get it and what you're willing to sacrifice to get it. Getting clear on those things is critical. And I'd say number one, knowing who you are is probably step number one in generating clarity. Why, understanding, like, taking your story and your experiences and saying, what's the mark I want to leave here? What is that? Is it that I want to be known for being a billionaire? It's like, well, the difference between being a 100 millionaire and a billionaire, the happiness scale, it doesn't really change much between those numbers. It changes a lot from making 500 a month to making 10,000 a month. Okay, the life gets a little easier with that level of jump. But when it's like, 500 million to a billion, your happiness is not gonna change much from. And I know people who are billionaires, and it doesn't. More money at a certain point doesn't cause any greater level of satisfaction when you jump from certain numbers to other numbers. So clarity is like super, super important. And I think, let me quit this messaging app so we don't get dings every few seconds. I think the second thing after clarity is asking the question, like, who am I going to need along the way? What I call connections. So clarity, connections. Like get connected with people. So once you know what you want, there is nothing you will want in life that you will be able to do alone. You just won't. So you're like, why would you, self-made does not exist. Self-made, like I call solopreneurs slowpreneurs, because it is like the slowest way to do anything in life is like, hey, do it all yourself. It's like, I've heard this phrase a long time ago, DIY are the three most expensive letters in the dictionary. It is more expensive, it's slower, it's harder. You will never be one person who has all it takes to build something big and great. And you probably have large and great aspirations and goals. And so if your goal is to live alone for the rest of your life and never see anyone, then maybe, yes, you could do that. So quickly, people try and pursue what I think is like the third step when it comes to money. They don't think about clarity first. They don't think about connections second. All they think about is cash first. Get money now. I want money now. And if it doesn't come fast, I'm dissatisfied. It's really that never worked for me anyway. Just go get more money. And I think it's kind of short-sighted, because on the other side of like having a clear vision, and then having a clear desire and a clear understanding of who you are and what role you'll play in that allows you to say, well, who are the other players I'm going to need? Who are the other people I'm going to need along the way? Who am I going to need to meet that I can connect with? And like, that's like, think of any great business story, it's like it was because several people connected together and did something. It was like the PayPal Mafia is called the PayPal Mafia for a reason. It was like a bunch of people who were in the same place who connected and met each other, and together collectively they produced some pretty cool stuff over the last 30 years. So that's kind of like step number one. Step number two for me, clarity and getting connected with people. And then the third is cash flow. You do need income. That's a real thing. And I think many people try to like kind of go straight from income, or they're making a little bit of money. They're like, I want to invest. I want passive income. I think that's like kind of maybe with the point I'm getting to is like everyone wants the finish line tomorrow. That's not how meaningful things are built. You certainly start with the end vision in mind, but man, an insatiable desire to have everything now can kind of bite you, because it kind of blinds you with like almost a selfish ambition, rather than like, hey, what is the money is only good for the good it can do. So why do I want the money? What's the thing I want the money for? Money is just a tool, right? But you do need to have it. So after you've really focused, then that's when you can start really focusing on generating cash flow in your life. After you're generating cash flow, then you focus on profit with money. So how can now I'm making money, how can I create excess? How can I create profit in that? After you've created profit, you have to figure out, well, what do I want to do with that profit? How do I get organized with this extra money? So what's my strategy? And you develop a vision for what you want to do with your excess money. Because if you're only making a small amount of money, the world will develop what you need to do with your money. And that typically looks like a car payment and a mortgage and bills. And by the end of the month, the world has already told you where your money's going to go. So you do need to develop that excess and get organized with it. And then once you get organized, you focus on scaling. So it's, for me, like kind of my system is like clarity, connections, cash flow, profit, organization, and scale. So those are kind of the 6 steps that how I look at kind of the phases you might be in financially. And then when you have that money, there's like obviously a million options out there, right? There's almost option overwhelm. Well, do I invest in Bitcoin, or do I invest in real estate, or do I focus on passive income or growth assets, or all these complicated financial words, right? And I think one of the things that I like to focus on is, what am I most interested in? What am I most fascinated by? And start to learn. Get obsessed and learn. Just ask, what are you most interested in? What asset class or what investment opportunity most interests you? Is it entrepreneurialism? Is it starting a business? I mean, there's only 4 options, right? You start a business, you can invest in paper assets, you can invest in real estate, or you can invest in commodities. That's about it. Every other investment will fall into those 4 categories. So your options are kind of limited as an investor in multiplying money. So you kind of just have to get to asking, what am I most interested in? It goes right back to clarity. Do you know who you are? Do you know what your aptitudes are? Do you know what your strengths are? Do you know where you're weak? Because if you're like a hyper social person, daily reading statements or investing in the stock market, like maybe hell for you, right? But then maybe real estate is like getting out there and negotiating, and maybe that'd be more fun for you. So kind of finding the right places to do money. But money is, it is and can be a very, very complex topic. You shouldn't beat around that. And that's why it requires a lot of education. So I said that the thing that people probably could benefit the most by is like committing to continual education about the topic, because as we're living in a highly inflationary market, which 10 years ago, a lot of people didn't even know what inflation was, you can see that the value of your work can diminish over time if you're not smart. So it's an important topic to know about.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that's an amazing system that you just dropped there. And I encourage anyone listening right now to commit to writing down everything that Cash just said in terms of that system that he follows. I think it was like 6 steps pretty much. And commit to not skipping past step 1, getting clear, and then the connections. Don't skip past those, because like I think that's where a lot of people mess up from, is like you were saying, a lot of people, they want the finish line right now, and then they think of money as like this thing that they just want right now. But like you were saying, there's a whole system behind it, because it's not just you get money, now you have it. Like, what are you going to do with it now? So there's all these different things that comes with money, and getting clear on that system and educating yourself on all those different steps that you just said, I think is really, really crucial. Cash, do you have time for one more question?
Yeah,
I just want to be respectful.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So this is my favorite question to ask on the show, because if this was your last day on earth and you were going to leave behind 3 things that your kids, grandkids, future generations 100 years down the line could come to if they were in a moment of struggle, or they were just not feeling right, depressed, anxious, and they just really needed 3 pieces of advice in a moment, what would you tell them? And what would those 3 pieces of advice be?
That is a very tall order. Dang. That's a really interesting question. It's kind of like the billboard question or the message. What's your message? And I think for people who might be in a position of feeling low, man, I can't say that I can knock this question out of the park. I think it's, if I'm trying to think about, oh man, what would I say to my kids if they were in this position? What would I say to my friends?
What would you say to you 20 years ago?
Yeah, and it's a good way to frame it. Man, I think 20 years ago, in my unique position, I definitely needed to be told, quit your whining, get off your ass. You have a lot of talent. You're here on earth for a reason. You were given gifts. You were given abilities. You got legs. You got lungs. You got a voice. Go make yourself useful. Go make yourself useful. Don't come on this planet. Don't come to the earth. Come here and take of its resources, and then mope around the whole time and just eat of its food and take of its relationships and not give anything back. You have a purpose. You have a reason to be here. Like, go do the work to figure it out. Get your ass in gear. Stop feeling sorry for yourself. Cut the BS scripts out, looking in the mirror and self-pity. I mean, this was my personal issue. Everyone's got their own different issue. I needed my ass kicked in gear, and it was. And this family was like, you're going to go to church, you're going to read the Bible, you're going to read all these books, and you're going to do all this stuff. And I was like, thank you. Because all I've got is this tape playing in my head the whole time, like, you're a loser, you're homeless, you dropped out of school, and you don't know how to make good friends, and you can't make good choices, and you're addicted to doing dumb shit. And I think all of that self-talk, I just needed a new voice, a new way to talk to myself at the time. And I think finding that purpose out there, finding a purpose in everything you're doing, everywhere you're going, and just get your ass in gear. Stop sitting around, stop loafing around, go do something and make yourself useful. I think that's probably what I needed. I would say to myself, and that's exactly what I needed to hear, and what someone did tell me. But I think for my kids, I'd probably say something different. I'd probably talk about the importance of the brevity of life and ordering your priorities, and sticking to them. So understanding who you are, your values, what's most valuable to you, what the vision for your life will be, and going after that, like, with extreme fervor. I would tell them, like, hey, you are going to be asked to compromise your entire life. You're going to be told you should think this and do that. I would just really encourage them to listen to their gut, but also weigh that against wise counsel. I would say, like, your heart can lead you in a whole bunch of dumb directions. So don't just listen to it. But when you are convicted in your gut that this is the right thing to do it. When it comes to doing the right thing and being able to look in the mirror, if there's an opportunity to do the right thing, always do the right thing. You'll know what that is. We all know what that is. It comes down to, like, doing what you shouldn't be doing and not doing what you should be doing. Do more of what you should be doing and do less of what you shouldn't be doing. I'd also tell them that the best investment you could probably make is into people. And that's paid off tenfold, that millions fold. Tenfold is like a major understatement. It's paid off millions fold in my life. I've made investments of $2,500 into other people that have turned into tens of millions of dollars for me. And I think that that's on a financial landscape or analogy there, but investing time with people, investing your experiences and sharing those experiences, showing up and supporting them. I think I don't want to get to the end of my life, and I don't want my kids to get to the end of their life alone, knowing that they went through their whole life just trying to take what they could get, just get what you can get. Really invest in other people. Everyone's got something to give, and when you invest in other people, it's probably one of the most rewarding things that can happen to you. The payoff. I mean, it's not always monetary, but life is really, really, really short. So take seriously what should be taken seriously, and don't give a crap about the rest. Ignore the things that don't matter, like people's opinions. That's probably what I would say at this point. Ask me in another year, and I'll probably say something else or have a better prepared answer. But I don't have an answer for everything, and I'm not prepared for everything. So
I love that. I think if you ever feel like you're completely set in life, like you're prepared for everything, you know everything, I think that's when you really have to step outside and see the real world, because that means that you're not living in reality. I don't think there's ever a time where anyone should ever say I have everything figured out.
Oh,
but
Cash,
I appreciate you. Yeah, I appreciate you so much for your time, man, and for coming on here. And this was absolute gold, and I know that there's a lot of valuable insights that people are gonna pull from this. And I just want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for coming on. And the one thing that we can never get back is time. So I just can't thank you enough for coming on here.
That's very true, man. The one thing we will never get back is time. Most valuable resource. Appreciate it, man.